From the S-400 missile defense system to the Su-57 fifth-generation fighter jet, Moscow's military might is on full display at the Russian Army Expo. We sit down with the director of Russia's Federal Service for Military and Technical Cooperation, Dmitry Shugaev, to talk about the future of Russian weapons, cooperation with partners, and the impact of U.S. sanctions. I'm Yusuf Erim, and you're watching One on One. Director Dmitry Shugaev, thank you for joining us and taking time out of your very busy schedule.
My pleasure.
I've been at this event now for 2 days, and it's an incredible event. Many weapons on display. We're seeing the full scale of Russia's military armaments and technology. And you, as one of the main hosts, obviously are very busy. So thank you once again for joining us. Now, I want to ask you, what big ticket items, what very important weapons do you expect to receive the most interest for from prospective buyers and prospective members of the international military-industrial complex? And also, what new armaments, what new weapons will be coming out in future Russia Army Expos that make you very excited?
Спасибо большое за вопрос.
I would like to note that we have been expecting a grand event like this for a long time. For us, it's very significant, and it's also important to emphasize that it's the first big event that's been held during the coronavirus pandemic. And the numbers speak for themselves. 90 representatives from different countries have visited this Army Expo. And of course, this event for us is very significant, and I believe we've already achieved a huge success by holding this event today. It gave us the possibility of meeting our colleagues. We've been eager to see our partners and haven't had a chance to meet during the past couple of months. We have a very extensive agenda and a lot of negotiations on the table. More importantly, we have a lot to showcase at this event. The event will present a new Viking rocket launcher on a new wheelbase, 8-8, a Kalashnikov AK-203, the military transport aircraft IL-76MD, the military aircraft fueler IL-78, small arms and lots of weapons of various kinds, unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, including Orion, which is quite a heavyweight offensive UAV. And of course, we do have some contracts prepared to be signed at this event that will amount to several $100 million. And the high level of foreign representatives and the technology we are presenting, and the samples that our partners have brought, all this shows and proves that this Army Expo has been very significant.
You talked about over 90 countries visiting, and at the opening ceremony, which I attended, I saw many flags and many members from militaries from across the world. But I want to concentrate mainly on two very important countries for Russia, India and China, both important customers, but also important countries for cooperation as well. What type of partnership, what type of cooperation could we see between Russia and these two countries in the defense sector for the future?
First of all, I want to say these two are really major partner countries for us, and relations and cooperation with these two countries have a long backstory. Today, it's also important to note that for India, for instance, our portfolio orders are more than $15 billion. We have a lot of projects. You all know that we have concluded a contract to supply S-400s and also to supply frigates, as well as a very important project on joint production of the newest Kalashnikov AK-203 with India. Yesterday I met with the head of the delegation, Mr. Kumar, and we have discussed the whole range of relations between Russia and India. You have also mentioned China, and I would like to emphasize that one of the contracts with China is about offensive air weapons. So our relations with both countries are developing dynamically, and we don't categorize our more than 100 partners as major or minor. All of our partners are important and strategic.
Turkey is another country that has become important customer for Russia, Russian weapons, and also cooperation geopolitically. We see the Turkish president and the Russian president have a very good relationship in many global issues. Now, 2019 was a very important year, a year where we saw a Turkish-Russian military defense deal, the S-400, grab headlines. Every day we can see international reports about the S-400 deal, US opposition to it, Turkey and Russia cooperation. So how do you evaluate the S-400 deal, and how do you evaluate Russia-Turkish defense ties?
По прошедшему году, по результатам прошедшего...
As a result of last year, Turkey has become one of the top 5 major partner countries of Russia. Nowadays, our orders portfolio exceeds $1 billion. And yes, in 2017 we signed a landmark contract. And last year we delivered S-400 systems to Turkey. We have fully executed our obligations. The S-400s are already on Turkish soil, and our guarantee specialists are working in Turkey and are helping make those systems operational. We highly value our relations, and I want to thank our Turkish partners for their persistence and courage, despite all the pressure that many countries have tried to exert on Turkey to affect the decision. The priority of national defense and national security has prevailed, and an independent and correct decision was taken by the Turkish government. Turkey was under great pressure in the first stage, and it's still going on today. But I'm quite sure that we have very bright prospects for our relations in the military, technical sphere, and our future in general. Our relations won't be built on air defense. We also have other aspects in aviation, such as aircraft production. Last year, at a Moscow Air Exhibition when Mr. Erdogan was in Moscow, as a distinguished main guest of this event, and then at Technofest, our new Su-35 and Su-57 fighters were presented, and he took real interest in both.
Now, you talked about the Su-35, maybe Su-57. Now, Turkey has been kicked out of the F-35 program, a program that it's been a partner with for many, many years, over a decade. And Turkey still has at least 6 or 7 years before its own TFX project, its 5th generation fighter jet, is ready to be delivered. Now, there's a time span where Turkey needs a stopgap airplane. Have Russian and Turkish officials talked about any type of purchase that can be used for this interim period until Turkey receives its own TFX airplane?
Я хотел бы самое главное подчеркнуть, что...
I would like to point out that an important thing our Turkish partners really liked about the Su-35 aircraft is that it's a multifunctional fighter jet. It's a very good fighter jet with high-tech characteristics and capabilities. And if Turkey really wants it, and if we receive an official request from the Turkish side, then we are ready to discuss it and to supply this plane. So the Su-57, as we all know, is 5th generation. It's the next step given the technology. At the moment, it's primarily provided to the Ministry of Defense of Russia. But given the work that has been conducted on the Su-57 and the experience that the Russian producers have, it could be potentially interesting to our Turkish partners from the point of view of developing the TFX fighter jet. I mean that we could use our experience in fields such as engine production, planning, onboard equipment, and other auxiliary systems that any 5th generation fighter jet needs. The cooperation in this respect could be mutually beneficial and interesting for both countries. So we're quite ready to cooperate with our Turkish partners in all areas of aircraft production, and what we really need is goodwill, and above all, we need to agree, as Russian people say, on the shore, before setting sail, about the intellectual property rights, protecting confidential information and other issues. We do have documents like this already prepared.
Well, you talked about cooperation. Is there technology transfer, especially with regarding the S-400, because this was a very important deal between both countries, and what level of technology transfer could there be in the future between Russia and Turkey, given Turkey's NATO membership? How does Russia feel cooperating in the field of defense with a NATO member?
Я хотел бы...
First, I would like to stress that this is not the first contract we are signing with a NATO country. Before that, we had a contract on S-300 deliveries to Greece. Also, we are quite open to cooperating with Turkey despite its NATO membership because Turkey is our good neighbor and we have to develop all fields of cooperation with Turkey, including military technical cooperation. The initial delivery of the S-400 system was just a supply contract, and because the first contract was just a supply contract, we can possibly discuss the type of industrial cooperation between our countries in the future. But this is a question of credibility. It's a much more sensitive and delicate issue that we should discuss separately, and it should be in the interests of both countries. I would also say that nowadays many countries, many developing economies are trying to develop their own national industries. Therefore, technological cooperation becomes imperative in military technical cooperation, and I think this would be mutually beneficial for both Russia and Turkey.
Now, I want to shift away from Turkey and I want to talk a little about the United States. Russia is the second biggest exporter of weapons in the world, only to the United States. Now, we know that the US has enforced very tough sanctions on the Russian defense sector. How is the Russian defense sector dealing with these sanctions? How much of an impact is it having right now on sales, and where could the Russian defense sector be in the future if there weren't sanctions?
Well, first of all, I would like to stress that we've been living under sanctions for quite some time already. The CATSA law actually officially introduced the policy that the US has been conducting against Russia for quite some time already. And I really assure you that we've been finding ways and will continue to find ways to make the lives of our partners easier in the face of all those sanctions. Actually, the aim of the US is to push away from our traditional markets because Russia has always been really strong in the field of merger and technical cooperation and in defense markets. We've always been powerful and mighty in this market, so they want to frighten our partners. They want to kick us away from this market, which they will not possibly be able to do. The figures speak for themselves, and we know that Russia is still very powerful in the defense market. And we've gotten used to this unfair competition, so to say. We are very grateful to all of our partners who still show their stamina and show their firmness in continuing to cooperate with Russia and refuse to be diverted from cooperating.
Do you feel that the US is using these sanctions not just in a political sense, but in a way to limit competition from Russian companies to scare off other countries from doing business with Russia? And do you think that this is fair, the way that these sanctions are being imposed on the Russian defense sector?
Ну, вы практически в своем вопросе ответили...
So the exact answer was in your question. Of course, there are political motives, but the economic factors are much stronger in those sanctions. The US is aspiring to get rid of Russian companies because they're competitors, and to make them less competitive. And it's also a kind of cowboy-style language they're using. It has nothing to do with fair competition. And actually, what they want to do is try to weaken our military technical cooperation, thinking that it would be the instrument that would negatively affect Russian security issues, which is, of course, impossible.
Mr. Shugaev, one last question. Now, we've been talking about Russia and the US and how sanctions are impacting the Russian defense sector. How do you compare Russian weapons versus US weapons? Let's say the S-400 or S-500 versus Patriots or THAADs, or the F-35 versus Su-35, Su-57?
Ну, можно, конечно, сейчас...
Of course, without going into tactical and technical characteristics of those pieces of equipment, I would just like to emphasize that the quality and the pricing and the composition of the two is much better with Russian weapons. There's a graphic example. We do remember that the US was very eager to sell their Patriots to India, and they used some restrictions and sanctions on individuals. But it's generally accepted that the S-400 is the world's best anti-missile defense system. It's a combination of factors starting from the range of its radar, and its ability to attack low-flying targets, as well as its ability to work in all weather conditions. And the same can be said about our aviation. Of course, US fighters are quite advanced, but our Su-35s, as we all know, are no less advanced, and in no respects are they inferior to American fighters. And as for the Su-57, of course, it's not simply because of nothing that such huge interest is shown in this fighter. It's a real fifth-generation fighter, and I'm quite sure that we will still have talks with Turkey and other partners about this type of fighter. But the real factor is that it will be at a much more competitive price than American equivalents, and the reason? It will be very intense in weapon systems and other onboard systems.
Director Shugaev, thank you for taking time out to answer my questions, and best of luck with the Army Expo.
Thank you very much.